From Texas, Ms. Jackson-Lee.
Chairman Roy, I'm very grateful for your courtesies and the courtesies of this committee, to the ranking member, the courtesies of Ms. Scanlon. The good news that I heard as we were concluding your last question, Ms. Atkinson, is that the PRESS Act does help.
It seems like it would, Ms. Lee.
Yes, and so we need to, the word investigative, I hope that you want us as members of Congress to investigate so we get it right. So that this very hallowed amendment or Bill of Rights in the First Amendment is taken seriously. I take it very seriously, and I appreciate the work that all of you do in spite of the obstacles that you face. This is America, and we have mountains and valleys. I would like to get a sense from all of you where we are in the comfort level of your protection. I'm going to start with Johnson. I appreciate the Institute at Columbia, I believe. And I want to make sure we've got the PRESS Act that may be needing to be reimagined. We're looking at other legislation that allows investigative reporters to work, but not, I think there's a fine line between, I want to use the term abuse on both sides, but there's a fine line. So I'm going to start with you, Ms. Johnson. What more care do we need to give to have the work of an investigative reporter work? And I'm going to ask each of you that question. I think that will help us. I'll be finished, and I'll have to get another hearing at another point to go into more deeply concerned issues. But Ms. Johnson, if you would, quickly.
So I think the first thing that we need to do is to ensure the PRESS Act gets passed into law and signed. But I think it's also important to remember and to recognize this is a fraught time for journalists. We have new surveillance technologies. We have a question of funding for journalism itself. And so it's really important to do what Congress can do in the immediate term to protect information that is vital to our democracy, which is to protect journalists and allow them to do the job we need them to do.
And are you concluding your testimony by saying that would be to pass the PRESS Act and have funding?
The first thing Congress should do, yes, is to pass the PRESS Act, ensure that it is signed into law in order to protect journalists and allow them to be able to give assurances to their sources that they will not be revealed. There is, of course, a bigger question about funding for journalism as a profession as a whole. Yes.
All right. Ms. Atkinson, where do we need to go with this?
One outstanding issue is, regardless of what laws are passed, we know from the factual record that there are bad actors inside our agencies that will violate laws. So a law doesn't necessarily provide full protection. And number two, when a citizen tries to get redress for something like that in civil courts, as I'm doing, I found the federal government has inordinate protections, their own shield laws, I'll call them. They have immunity. We have to get permission from them, the alleged guilty party, to get depositions and information. And I think this is something that needs to be fixed by Congress, the broad immunity granted to people who may be doing wrong inside government.
And is there any detriment to the IE, I'm on another, on the AI, is there another detriment to the fact that AI exists amongst us?
I'll bet there is, but I'm not an expert on that.
All right. We're back-to-back hearings. And if you would, Ms. Cavallaro, sorry, didn't see it. Thank you, Ms. Cavallaro. What more do we need to do?
So SAG-AFTRA has for decades supported a federal shield law, and we would first hope that the PRESS Act passes. I think that's a priority. I think we need to take that first step. I do think there are other challenges facing journalism and journalists that we would love to use our voice as a labor union representing journalists to advocate for, but I do think that it's a priority. I think the idea that this passed unanimously and there is bipartisan support should mean it's something that we should be able to move forward quickly and expeditiously.
We're going to do a deep dive on that. I want to just quickly finish, I think, with Ms. Atkinson.
Herridge. Herridge.
I'm looking at Ms. Herridge.
Yes, thank you.
If you would.
Sure, thank you for the question. I agree with my colleagues. I think the imperative is to get the PRESS Act through the Senate and on the President's desk. It's going to close a gap in the federal courts. It's going to bring consistency between the state shield and the federal shield laws, and I just think a lot of good will follow from that.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm very grateful for the time given. I think we are committed to doing a deep dive on this very important issue. First Amendment rights are pivotal, and I want to be part of helping as opposed to undermining. Thank you so very much, and I yield back.
I think the gentlelady from Texas on